Greetings, everyone. So last month we reached a really important milestone for Power Virtual User Group. It was the 10th birthday for Power Virtual User Group. And I ran the very first session of the series on the 15th of June in 2011. And guess who was presenting? It was Nigel Griffiths, educating us on exploiting virtualization with Power VM. So I'm really pleased to have Nigel back with us for our 108th session, which is going to cover a first look at the new POWER9-based HMC. And Nigel is no stranger, as he's mentioned, to PowerVarg, having delivered loads of sessions over the years. And no introduction can really do justice to the legend that is Mr. Enmon.
Oh, dear. And we love you too, Jyoti.
I won't go on then.
Good.
And, you know, he will deliver it in his usual candid style. Need I say more? So over to you, Nigel.
Okay, thank you, Jyoti. So we're looking at the hardware management console, and there's a new one out. It was announced in April and available in May. It's the new CR2, or the 7063-CR2. And it's our pleasure to actually have an early machine from the Austin labs to give it a go. We take them apart and take pictures of them, things that we don't recommend our customers do. You may invalidate your warranty if you take it apart like we do, but at least you can see inside the machine and what is it like, and then we give some hints and tips of the things we found as we went along. Okay, now I have found in the past actually people do really care about the HMC. Some people actually use them all day long, right? And if there's a new one, they want to know about the details. I guess if you don't know what a HMC is, you're probably in the wrong session. But just a little reminder, it's the controller, if you like, of our IBM Power servers, going from 7 to 8 to 9. And of course, we're looking forward to Power 10 in a couple of months' time. And a reminder, it's not just the thing you start the machine, start an LPAR with. There's a whole bunch of things it's actually doing, configuring it, dynamically changing things. Live partition mobility is kicked off from there, simplified remote restart. And of course, the high level functions we have with the Power VC and the CMC way of operating a cluster of machines all use or drive the HMC to get their job done. So here's the, this is my version of the announcement. You can see the link down there at the bottom. And I've cleaned up the English because you know, the Americans can't help it. And I can say that because I was born in America. Now, it's a 1U, so that we're used to that. It's got one Power9 processor with 6 cores. That's quite a big jump from previous, particularly the more x86 versions of the HMC. Going back many years now. We haven't been selling those for something like 2 years at least now. And it's a little bit like hi-fi, isn't it? When you upgrade to hi-fi, you don't really notice the difference very much. But if you use it for a couple of months, go back to the old one, you think, oh dear, how did I listen to that? And the similar sort of thing to get some older HMCs, the x86 based ones that are now controlling my Power 7 machines. It was a bit clunky, to be honest, and a bit slow. One of the you only have actually 2 options when you order a HMC. One is the 64 gigabyte or the 128 gigabytes of memory, which is a massive jump. I mean, some of the older ones went up to 32 if you ask for the extra options, but that's a big jump. We're keeping it simple. There's large and enormous memory sizes. I'm not quite sure why you want 128, unless you're going for that full spec. You know, the maximum number of machines, and they're great big enterprise machines with a couple of thousand LPARs on them. Then they may want the extra memory. In them, there's 2 disks. Always they're mirrored. It's completely invisible to the user, and we got 4 1 gigabit connections on the back. That's to connect to the server's processors and to connect to the management network for the systems administrators to get in. There's an optional 10 gigabit card. We've got a slide on that a little bit later on, so I'll move on. And the regular bits and pieces in here, customer setup. You can ask for support from lab services if you want. The same old sort of regular things, concurrent maintenance of disks, hot plug power supplies, redundant cooling. I always think that sounds like a refrigerator, doesn't it? But it's the fans. And we got an op panel on the front that's been a bit simplified, and we've got in-rack servicing. It doesn't tell you what that means. You'll work out what that means in the next couple of slides. And of course, with this new HMC, we have a new version of the HMC code, and I will recommend that you start off with that, and that will control your Power 7, 8, and 9 computers. That one HMC can only cover 3 different generations of Power computers. I hope we already know that. New that we can actually rack ship the HMC. So if you buy a server and you want it pre-put into the rack, so we deliver the whole rack to you, that can now include the HMC. That wasn't allowed in the past. And there's 2 rail versions. There's a fixed length rail, and that's what you get if you buy the rack and have it pre-installed, because we know exactly what the size of the rack is. We can put that in. But there's also an adjustable length rail kit, and that covers round and square holes. Wow, that's a bit of rocket science, isn't it? So if you're going into an OEM rack or something, or you may move it out of a T42 into something else in the future, then you want the adjustable rack, and you can just adjust the length. It's very simple to do. We'll show you a picture of that in a minute. So it's pretty simple. Only 2 questions you have to yourself: how much memory do you want? I think the 64 should be enough for the bulk of people, and that optional 10 gigabit card. That 10 gigabit card is used to talk to your systems administrator. You don't use that card to talk to the server's processors. They've got a 1 gigabit limit. Okay. Now, I'm not going to confirm or deny that I've had a Power 10 machine available to me. So anyway, if you're running HMC release 9, this is looking into the future now, because Power 10 will come out soon, and you add a Power 10 server to it, then the HMC will say, okay, I can tell that there's a service processor on the end of the network there, but it's running a version I don't know anything about, so it will just show you on the screen, and it will say version mismatch and refused any other operation for that computer. If you take a Power 9 machine, CR2 or CR1, I guess, and upgrade it to release 10 of the HMC software that you need to talk to a Power 10 computer, it will say all your Power 7 machines will go red and say version mismatch, and there's nothing you can do with those. In fact, the only thing you can do down the bottom, you can select remove system connection and remove it, and then you could cable it into an older HMC to manage it from that. If you're on HMC 10 and then you connect a Power 10 to it, that's fine. It just behaves as a normal computer. And if you've still got Power 7 attached, that's in version mismatch. So just letting you know, that's in the future what will happen, because you can only cover 3 generations in one HMC software release, regardless of what the hardware you're using. So this is what we got in a computer room. It's a sort of cardboard palette. It was quite nicely made, actually, and all the details on there. Here it is. We put it on the table. We lifted the lid, and we got the usual power cable, a bunch of bits and bobs. And I don't know why we keep shipping these things. I think the DVD's got the installation manuals in, or maybe the safety things in there. There's a whole bunch of labels in there. We just stick them in a box and ignore them from then on, because we got tons of cables, the mains cables to plug in. At the top in here you have a rack, the rack rails, nice and heavy metal. You won't fail to notice them as you're emptying the box. Lift the lid, the tray if you like, out, and you can see the nice HMC. This is about a month before the GA date, so all this has already been organized. We've probably got the first machine off the production line, so it's all as you'd expect. There's a little label in here. As you peel it apart to get into the plastic bag, it sort of shreds itself, so it's obvious that if you try to put it back in the box and send it back saying it has unused, we can tell. Right, so here it is. We lifted it out of the box. Nice slim 1U unit. It has these thing on the back in here to protect all the connections. Wasn't really impressed with the blue tape holding that on, but it does the job. I guess the actual GA ones might have a strap around it or something more professional looking. So here it is on the table. Nice clean lines. It's all in jet black. People were asking me for a Visio image of the HMC. I just said make a black triangle and put a green dot on one end, because that's all you can actually see of the machine, unless you've got some bright light on it. So here we are, nice bright light. Over on the left hand side we've got 2 discs. The top thing is just a cover plate to to hide the hole. There's nothing in there at all. We've got 5 mini fans. They're about 1 inch or so. I didn't go measure them, but they're about 1 inch that drive the air through the machine. 2 USB at the front. There's a couple of little LEDs that one of them does come on when you power it up. It flashes green when it's ready, and then you press the on-off button, which is sort of white until it lights up bright green. A little warning there, don't do what I do. I was trying to take a picture of the QR code at the top with the serial number on it, but the light had lit up because it's powered on, and it was so bright I couldn't take the picture. So I put my finger on the button to hide it and took the picture, and then I accidentally pressed slightly too hard on the light, and that's the on-off button as well. So I powered my HMC off. So do be careful with messing about with your fingers near that lamp and the on-off button. This was early ship. I think there may be an IBM logo on the right-hand side for the GA versions of the machine. So here's around the back. It all looks pretty professional and well organized. So we got a bit closer, and you can see the power supplies and all the bits and pieces in here. But there's one question that we thought of while we want to take this thing apart. How do we get the lid off and fiddle about inside? And we can see these little tiny little grub screws all down here, all down to the front, and there's a whole set down either side as well. And we thought that's like 20 screws to get undone. That's a lot of little grub screws. They're the sorts that are so tiny you know you're going to lose some of them on the computer room floor if you're not very careful and put them into a plastic bag or a pot or something. And the answer is, how do you get the lid off? The answer is you don't take the lid off. All the units come in the front and back of this HMC, so there's no need to take it off. We actually talked to the developers, and they said, oh, you can take the lid off. There's clear instructions on how to do that. I'll be worried about undoing some screws and I'd hear a sort of clunk inside and something is now no longer connected to the lid and it's fallen down because I can't see what they're connected to. But there is a procedure if you really need to do that. There is a passive set of connectors down the middle of the HMC, and they're just passive connectors, so I doubt they'll ever break, but you can get the lid off if that does happen. Right, now back to the same picture again. This here, we got 2 knurled knobs or handles in here, and then you've got a thing sticking up in here, a little handle. You pull that towards you and then turn it out, and that will actually pull out that unit to about 1 centimeter or so, and we have the planar, which is the whole bulk of the HMC in one go. So we put that on top of the HMC itself, and you can see lots of details in there. We can see the knurled knobs and the handles that you turn, and that eases it out of the chassis. And then you should be using as anti-static straps to do this, of course. There's just some big pictures of the actual handles that you use to pull it out. Not rocket science, pretty obvious now I stated it. So here's the actual HMC, the guts of the computer. And it's quite a nice little computer in its own right. Of course, it needs some power supply on the connector in here, and to the other things, fans, power supplies. That's just about it, really, isn't it? Not an awful lot of electronics and things. Oh, there's the front panel and the LEDs and the buttons on the front as well. USB connections are out there as well. So this is what all the connections are on the left in here. These blue buttons allow you to pick up the planar without touching the electronics. This thing in here, well, let's just move on. I've labeled it all up. We'll start with down here at the bottom right. This is the 10 gigabit 2-port Ethernet adapter, which is RJ45 on the end. And these are 2 heat sinks that are actually the CPUs that drive the high-speed network. And it's plugged in, it's put in sideways, because it's only 1 U high. So this thing here with the green is the PCIe socket. The T's dangling at the end, that's annoying. Over here is the BMC, the base manufacturer's controller or something like that, motherboard controller. This is the service processor for the HMC. It's called an A-speed as the people that make it. I think it's an AMD embedded processor type of computer. Oh, base management controller. Thank you, Gareth. Okay. Right. What else are we looking at around here? We go around the top. This looks like two different heat sinks, but it's one heat sink with a clamp that goes over the top to make sure it's firmly connected to the actual processor below. There are 4 DIMMs, and if you buy the 64 gigabytes of memory, you get 4 DIMMs, and if you buy the 128 gigabytes of memory, you get 4 DIMMs. So they're using the 4 DIMMs to get the maximum memory bandwidth, but you get 4 of each, so you can't really do an upgrade. Well, you'd end up with 64 gigabytes of memory you may or may not be able to reuse somewhere else. Oh, down here, yeah, it says power discs, USB, LEDs, and buttons for the connectors. You're not really aware of these connectors down the back in here. As you push this back in, the 2 handles come around again, and you use them to lever it in for the last centimetre or so, and that actually makes the connections at the back. We got the battery in here, really low tech, isn't it? 2032. I've got a bucket full of those downstairs in the kitchen for various devices. But that's the standard way we keep the clock running when you unplug the machine. Little card in here. This is the VPD, the vital product data, to ensure that you pay for the software and all that sort of thing. And that's the tour. There's not a lot on the actual motherboard, given that this is the 99% of the actual computer. But when you look at it, it looks really well engineered. This is looking from the other direction. I included this picture because you can see there's a metal cover, and it's about 3/4 of a centimetre. So it's like a metal box around the back or the bottom of the unit, and it's got things in it so that it doesn't touch the electronics and the soldering and short things out. It protects that, but it does make it a nice solid feel for the whole thing, and it's reassuringly heavy. Oh, that's a very nice term. I've got a Mont Blanc pen in here, and in the marketing blurb it said reassuringly expensive, so that's the way I'm using that term. But it feels nice and solid, goes in very smooth, no problems at all. You're thinking this is really nicely engineered. On the right in here, looking at the back, we have the 2 power supplies. All IBM computers have power supplies which are, be careful how I phrase this, overrated. The power that they can supply is greater than the power we actually need. This means that the power supplies are not, right at their limit of what they can provide. And it makes them more reliable as they're just working not on the limit. Okay, so here's the power supply being removed. You press down on the blue tab, and the nice handle, rugged handle there, pulls them out. We can see there's quite a lot of copper down on the actual connector, the bottom right, and this is where you need a little handle to pull them out, because the spring clips are grabbing onto those. That's because there's quite a lot of high voltage and amps going in and out, or out of the power supply. It's rated 80 plus platinum class, so it's pretty efficient adapter. We're not losing a lot of power converting down to the voltages we need, which is good. Okay, moving on. So we've got in the front in here, we've got the 2 discs and the 4 fans. Air moving devices, apparently, is what the IBMers like to call them back in the designers. So here's the fan. Quite a lot of metal covering the actual fan in here, and you've got a nice metal ring. Pull it out, just pops in and out, push it back in. It's nice and firm, but it's not hard to do. And we don't need anything else locking it in apart from the front cover going across the front of the fans. Then we've got the 2 discs in here, as is the way. You push the little blue tab, and the little arm pops out, and you hold onto the arm and the unit as it comes out, and in there you get a standard Winchester SAS disk at just under 2 terabytes, which seems an awful lot to a little HMC. And it's actually in a strong metal case, which makes you again feel reassuringly heavy. And you can see the connector at the back, standard SAS drive. No options about the actual discs. That's what you're going to get, and 2 of them for reliability. So let's move on to the rails and the putting the HMC, installing the HMC on it. So I'm going to get a little drink in a second.
While you're doing that, Nigel, let me just remind people that they can ask questions or make comments in the chat window. I have muted everyone, so prefer it if you stay on mute, but just type in your questions into the chat window.
Okay, now we get very excited with our rails in IBM South Bank in central London, because we've seen so many generations, and yet again they seem to be slightly different every time. And we've seen some shocking rails, the sort that will actually bite your finger, and you'll have red marks, shall we say, on the frame by the time you finish. But these are pretty good. And in this long thin box, we've got the two rails on either side, and it comes with lots of bolts. We had to point out to the Americans that although you normally you screw in screws into wood, don't you? And you can screw in bolts into metal, but we don't have screws in our computer. That's for wood. They're bolts, in actual fact. So it kept in the manual saying, "You screw in the screws," and we said, "We haven't got any screws. All we've got is bolts." But maybe that's us being a bit picky. So here they are. We have two brackets in the middle, and these clip and bolt onto the HMC itself, and the two on the outside are the ones that you connect to your actual frame, and then you present your HMC to the rails and push it in. You can see in the little blue arrows there's two little screws in there. Depending on your rack, you may have to extend the rail a bit longer. This is one of the adjustable rails, and we had to do that. And so you just undo one of them, slide it a bit longer so it will fit in your rack, and then you put the bolt back into a slightly different position. And then you get a bag of bolts and the nuts as well. So we'll look at those now. Somebody's asking about Ethernets, but we've got lots of pictures of those coming up. Don't worry about that. We actually had bolts which were torque. These have a sort of funny hexagonal hexagon-shaped thing on the end, as opposed to the regular bolts we have, which are hexagons. And with a Phillips on the inside. We've been told that none of the torque bolts will be supplied at GA time. But in the bag in here, you can see there's two sorts of these clips that you put into the rail in which to screw the bolt. I'll make sure I get my terms right. So if they have these little flanges, the little blue arrows are shown here, then that's for a square hole, because you can see that's going to pop through and grip onto the square hole. And the other one has a round center to it. That's the actual nut, as well as going through the rack to hold it in place. So you can spot which one's which. Now you know. Then the first thing to do then is take the two rails that were on the inside. These are the brackets, and you can see this funny is a key-shaped hole or something. So that goes over a nail head, and you slide it back. You can see the nail head down in here, and slide it back until it locks, and then you put a little screw at the front of the machine to hold it actually on the HMC itself. Then we, in here, I told you already that we had to loosen off the rail and make it slightly longer. And you can see the two bolts at the front in here. This is the one that actually locks the HMC into the rack. This is at the back. Yeah, we had to move the bolt further down to make it fit, because we had to extend it slightly to make it fit into our rack. Two bolts holding that rack in as well. Now, this is just a diagram that wasn't in the details of the installation guide. It just helps you visualize it. You have these U-shaped brackets on the rack, and then we have these down-shaped things that slide in it. There's no ball bearings in here like we have with pretty heavy power servers. So the HMC is pretty light, so it's a bit of a metal on metal. It's a stiff push to put it in. I was thinking of using some WD-40 or something, but we don't really want to spray oil around the computer room, so we just pushed it in and left it there. So this is it being mounted up, two of us holding it on its side, get it onto the rail and push it back. This is my CE pushing it into the rack until it hits the edge of the front rail. And you put those final 2 bolts in to lock it in the rack. Now, because we take everything out the front and the back of the machine, it can be put in there, and for the rest of its life, it does stay in the rack, unless you have a problem with that internal connectors. It will just sit there. You don't slide it in and out. Okay. Let's look at the cabling at the back. Well, those are the 2 power supply cables. So that's business as usual, isn't it? This Velcro in here goes around the cable so that it won't accidentally fall out, particularly if you've got the power supply at the bottom. The weight of the cable can ease it out over time. We have the VGA for a screen or a monitor, USBs for the keyboard and mouse, and then we have the network connections in here. And we've got another picture in a minute. Here you can actually see this is the extra adapter. They actually gave us the optional adapter in here. We're not actually using it in fact in our computer room, as we don't have an awful lot of 10 gigabit Ethernet around. And so we've got the 4 connectors in here, and the extra on here is a bit special. As you can see in here, it has an M. So this is the management one. This is the one where you could use the IPMI commands by putting it into here, and then we got 4 other adapters, Ethernet connectors on the back of the motherboard in here. This first one is a little bit special. We find that, or the HMC people have found that some people don't have very many ports in their racks, and so you can operate that particular one by having both the service processor being connected into that piece of network and the network cable going into your system management networks to allow your systems administrators to log into the machine. Okay, this this VGA port in here has a picture of a VGA port right next to it. And we pulled the developer's leg about that. We thought it was an American joke. But there we go. And they went very quiet. I think the guy who did it said, well, I couldn't think of anything else. They don't like, as you can tell, putting the name of things on the back of units, because if you're in the UK, we speak proper English, and the Americans sort of have a different sort of English. But there's a lot of countries out there that if you put the VGA, they say, what are these letters even? And so they try not to put words having to then explain what they actually mean.
I think this diagram, you were just going to say, probably explains or answers one of the questions that we had with how do we find out what ETH0, ETH1 is, and so on. Do we have to continue checking the manuals like we have with the previous HMCs? But this one seems to have them.
Yes. I think you have to check. Or it depends how lucky you feel, I guess. So you can program on up and you start pinging it and you find out which one's flashing. And then, okay, we'll leave that one plugged in still. It's the way that I tend to do things, but up to you. Yeah, it's a typical problem with the hardware people, that their funny numbering schemes always starting from 0, and is M0 or is it 00? You're never quite sure. So between the 2 of us, we do this sort of hardware review as feedback to improve quality in our machines. And over the years, they have got a lot better. We used to find all sorts of things wrong. We actually had one back in, I think, Power 6 days that we said, you are not allowed to release this until you get these 3 things fixed. And but it's the first time this has actually happened. I give this machine rated 100%. Even the joke, we enjoyed the joke, so we rated that as 100. It's a very nicely thought out piece of hardware, and we were very impressed. And you're thinking, this would actually make a very nice computer to take home, really. Running POWER9. I'm not sure what operating systems we could run, but anyway, so we gave the full marks and well done to the whole team that developed this piece of technology. And now we're going to go covering actually how to get this working. It's sitting in the rack in here in our computer room. It's got some other computers around it.
There's a question, Nigel. Is there a
Yeah.
chance that it's just gone up, gone off my screen? Hold on a second. Is there a chance to get 10 gigabit SX adapters in the future?
We'll come to that in a bit. Thank you for asking the question.
Okay.
I believe the XX means optical Ethernet, I believe. So, yeah, we'll come to that in a second.
And then one last one, which I think I know the answer to. The HMC 7063 is shipped or including, or does it ship or include the rack-mounted flat panel console? And as I'm aware that you have to configure that separately. It doesn't.
Yes, some people want that and some people won't, so we don't include it with the CR2. Yeah. And I think there's, well, we've got a few variations in our computer. I think there's the one that we recommend, but any old VGA screen keyboard and mouse will do. A lot of customers I know have them on like a trolley and they'll wheel them around to the computer they're running, want to work on at any one time. Or you can stick it on a desk and just plug it in the back and use it as you need it to then unplug it. You'll see why we don't really need the console on a permanent basis with HMC in a minute.
Okay.
Okay. So at the top then we have the CR2, nice sort of super cool functional look. Then we look at the older CR1, which is based on the POWER9. Now it's a pretty good HMC, not quite as fast as the POWER9 guy, but a lot. Both of them are a lot faster than the x86 versions of old. But the CR1 at the bottom is looking quite old-fashioned, and I think that's actually a picture of a Stratton, the LC912, actually, because the HMC was based on it, so it's probably slightly the wrong picture. I just spot there's 4 discs in here, which the CR1 has just the 2 discs. But anyway, yes, this has got all sort of rounded corners, and it's got the great big disc because the smaller discs now these days and that sort of thing. But yeah, anyway. Styles change even in the computer room. It's amazing how you can't have round buttons anymore, sort of thing. Fashion statement with your software these days. Right, so we're looking at software. I'm not going to do a 101 classic. How do you start up your HMC and get it all running? That'll be an extra 2 hours, and it's much the same even since the x86 days of old. Right, and again, this is a bit 101. You need to get to your latest software version ready, downloaded from the usual places on Fix Central and things. Need to plan out your network in advance. We tend to rush it all and think, hang on, I've got to assign some IP addresses just at the last minute, just as we want to type them in. And there's a reminder down here with my network diagram. In the reds, we have the private network that goes to the service processors at the back of the big power machines. And typically people use HTTP to actually allocate the IP addresses out the back. And the HMC is doing that for you. Completely private, it's nice and secure. Nobody can jump the gap and get onto that network at all. Then we have the IP address for the HMC itself to get remotely to the graphical user interface, or even SSHing into the command line. But now we have another IP address for the service processor of the HMC. And this is where it stretches your brain a little bit, because we now have a service processor for the HMC that talks to the service processor of the POWER9 servers. And so you're just thinking we're going to have a service processor for the service processor in a minute. But anyway, so we have this thing called OpenBMC. In the past, our smaller machines have had BMC service processors. The big enterprise machines still have what we call the FSP2, the fast service processor 2, which is in for our super reliable machines. But now we have a BMC sitting in the back of our HMC, and it has a different IP address. So as you're starting up your HMC, you can log into the BMC and power the main POWER9 computer up in the HMC, and then use it, and you can power it down, and you can use the BMC to install new HMC software and all sorts of things that are possible in there. And I'll show you some of the panels we can actually see. Okay, so here hopefully answers the question we had. We have the optional 10 gigabit base T or RJ45 connectors in here. It's actually the same as the card as we have in our big POWER9 boxes. It's common in that. There's no point in finding a different one. And yes, that is copper based. And the reason for using that at the moment is most of our machines, by asking our customers, have 1 gigabit or 10 gigabit that's used for their systems management administration. Remember, there's no users or high-speed connections needed to our HMC, as in running a massive database, running at 25 gig, 40 gig, or 100 gig. For systems management, that would be a bit of overkill. But we could, if we have a large number of clients requesting it, put in the optical connections if we find that customers only have that sort of connection. So the answer is no, we don't have optical to the HMC. We've never had that before, as far as I can remember. If that's a new requirement, then if we find enough numbers, then we'll put in the development effort and make that available. And Douglas Gibbs here's the IO man, Mr. IO, as we call him when we meet him at a conference typically. Right, now you plug in your HMC and you'll find that the little green LED on the front, the button one, will start flashing. And then it will do nothing at all. And so you press that button once. Now, I want to make sure you press it once firmly and then stop pressing it again, because the machine doesn't do very much for a good 30 seconds, maybe a minute. It always seems like a long time, because you suddenly think, well, maybe I didn't press it hard enough. And you press it again, and now you just power the machine off. So you wait 5 minutes and nothing happens, and you press it again and wait a bit longer, and it actually bursts into life. And on that the physical console, it will wait for a little bit. You can see some numbers coming up in here. There's about 15 numbers coming out in here, and then it starts booting up and it starts giving you progress as it goes up. You can see in here it says OCC, which is always interesting. That's an on-chip controller. That means the POWER9 processor actually has 2 or 3 other computers inside the chip. And those computers are PowerPC 64, much simpler chips, and they actually monitor the main processor and can detect problems like with the buses inside the POWER9 processor and report those and help with diagnostics and things. The on-chip controllers also do these sort of measuring of the temperature of the chip to make sure we're not getting too hot. It might be damaged, and it will ask the fan controllers to make the fans run faster and those sorts of things. But that's just by the way. After about 2 minutes, you'll get to this petite boot menu that will come up on the screen, and most people configure it so that it will auto boot into the main processor and start up the HMC software. So people sit there waiting for it. Once it comes up, they hit the up arrow and get off the place where it would carry on. You can see here it's named disk HDA2 is where it's going to actually boot from. This has already been installed. Now with our pre-GA version of the machine, this was Gareth actually doing this, we tried to set the IPMI commands to put the BMC on the network, and he did it once and then said reset, to which means it reboots the BMC processor, and it didn't come up on the network, and you suddenly think, well, maybe I did it wrong. So you do it again, and around you go again, and no, it still won't remember the IP addresses. And we think this was an early ship firmware problem, because the developers weren't that surprised. We said we can't get this to work, but there are other ways of doing that. The BMC comes up with a default IP address, so you can move to the IP address range and then talk to it and tell it about the real IP address that it should be using, and then start again, and you get in on the network. When it comes up, it looks like this. If you're talking to it over the network, you need to log in with root and the password, and that is in the documentation. If you're like me, you don't have the documentation in your pocket, and if you don't know that it's open with a capital O and a capital B, BMC, then you're stuck, right? It's dead on arrival, really. You have to go and remember that or dig it out, and then you can carry on. So that's why I'm making it very obvious what's going on in here. And it says your password's expired. It's a bit fussy on the passwords. You can't use root in the password, for example. So ABC root 123 or something. No, it says don't like that. It doesn't say why. It just says 8 to 20 characters, which annoyed Gareth somewhat. So we've warned you about that. It's probably not even documented. So now you log in, and you have these major areas of functionality of the interface down the left-hand side, and this is the information about the computer. You remember you're talking to the service processor of the HMC at the moment. And it says things like server information. No, it's not. This is the BMC we're talking to here at the moment. He's running BMC software and things in here, and it's quite a lot of interesting things in here. Critical health, and if it's running or not, and you can log out and refresh the screen if you want to. Then I've copied down in here, looking down these menu lists in here. If we go to health, we got event logs, hardware status, and sensors. If we go to server control, these are the important bits. This is the this server is the main POWER9 processor, and we can power that up and off remotely from here, which is quite a nice option. If your HMC just seems to get totally stuck, you can switch it off and switch it back on by talking to the HMC. You can put it to some power saving modes. I think it's a bit strange for the HMC, but there we are. LEDs, we can reboot the HMC itself. We have serial overland, so this is like a serial cable for a dumb console, text only console. The KVM is not kernel virtual machine. This is keyboard, video, and mouse. So this is normal screen work. So what would go on the physical console, it can actually be transmitted via this BMC interface remotely, so you see what's on the screen, but on your screen on your workstation. And we'll talk about the virtual media things later on. Network settings, firmware, time and date, bits and pieces of security. Okay. So here we are in server control, power operations, and you can see here we can order a reboot or a shutdown of the main processor, the HMC POWER9. I forgot. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, this may, if things go badly wrong, perhaps you're doing an upgrade and it fails for some horrible reason. Well, you can switch it on and off remotely, which is really nice. You don't have to go into the computer room. A lot of people, particularly with our COVID problems, we don't go to the office and we don't go to the computer room. It's very rare to actually go and give your computer a hug or polish the front panel of your CPUs and the computers these days. So it's nice to know you can do all this remotely without having to ask your mate to go off and unplug it and plug it back in to get it going again. Okay. There's a link at the top in here. This is a good place for installing the HMC. A whole lot of sub pages hanging from this. Some hints from me from having to reinstall it is that we have the physical console, the actual screen, keyboard, and mouse by the computer, but we have this duplication of that. We have a virtual console via the OpenBMC website, so for want of a word in a browser. Don't use both of them, because I found sometimes I was at the physical CPU and I said, yeah, proceed, and then nothing, it just had got a blank screen. It's gone. What's happened? Where's it gone? And then I go back to my desk and I've got the virtual console on my desk, and there it is saying, do you want to continue? It got very confused. So you want to stick with either the physical console and do everything there, or the virtual console. If you go between the two, you might find it put in the next bit of the conversation on the wrong screen. Here's some extra passwords that you might need. HSC read ABC123 is almost sort of folklore now, isn't it? Okay, and if you want the really secure version, of course, it's ABC 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now in this documentation, it covers the 3 different methods to install the HMC software. And dear, sometimes you worry about IBM. Currently, each of those 3 methods has a showstopper bug. Oops, it might have a plin in the showstopper bugs, and this is July, and the document will get updated. The HMC guy said, yeah, okay, we're going to fix that up. But that can take a long time, weeks or months, I guess. The manuals aren't sort of dynamically updated. They'll be scheduled to be updated, and they put all the updates in one time. So we might have to wait quite a long time. But then doing this sort of thing, I've come across several hits like use the physical or the virtual console, not both, or you can get stuck. So here's the 3 methods coming up in the next 3 slides, and I'll give you some hints and tips of the things that stuck. Got me stuck anyway. Right, so the first thing is you can boot your HMC and install it off a flash drive, also called a memory stick, or some people call them other things. And I just said, well, I know how to do that for a power computer, and I've put a DD of the ISO image straight onto the flash drive, and that didn't work at all. So you go and read the documentation at that point, and it says this procedure only works for Linux systems, and if you have some really strange version of Linux, that won't work either. So if you're a Windows 10 workstation like I have, or an Apple user, I don't know idea about Apple user, it may or may not work, but you can read through these things to work out what it is. Now, it does go step by step, telling you what to do, and it's even got a worked example down in here. For example, the actual commands that we're recommending for this, well, it says 14 gigabytes in here, because it's probably a 16 gig USB, but you lose some of that size, don't you? Because their kilobyte is 1,000 bytes for storage, and you actually got some other things already put onto the flash drive, so it's a little bit smaller, and they say round it down to the nearest gigabyte. So they've got the 14 in here, and they run this command. Now, when I looked up this, run the parted command, and these make label and make part are subcommands of the parted command. I looked up this make part, which make partition on the flash drive, and the manual pages for RHEL 8 and RHEL 7 are different, and I think it runs on my RHEL 8 workstation by accident, to be honest, because the ext3 is used as a name and not the actual format of the device, but I think it defaults to ext3 or something like that is going on. But anyway, then they're going to write your 4.7 installation image, 4.7 gigabyte installation image, with the cat command. You're going to cat the file and redirect it to dev SDB1. No, I don't think that's a good idea. One is the cat command isn't particularly fast. It will read 4K and write 4K and go around the loop 10 million times. And as it turns out, this is my Red Hat RHEL 8 ThinkPad. It says permission fails with permission issues, it said, and even if I run it as root, it still fails with permission. I don't think cat is allowed, well, at least with my Red Hat 8, to write directly to a /dev device. I mean, it's a rather odd thing to be doing. I can only assume the person who wrote the manual didn't know about the DD command, because I did DD and that worked first time. The next thing to note is you recently realize that flash drives are not flash disks, because they're not that fast, are they? I was using a USB 3 device, and it takes 12 minutes, which is longer than most people would actually sit there and wait. But of course, I started up Nmon, and I was watching it right to the drive, so I could see it was carried on away to the whole 12 minutes, and it worked fine. And then I could boot my HMC off that. So there's a couple of things in here that's a bit odd. Just can't imagine what they were thinking when they did this. Right at the bottom, after the cat command or the DD command would fail repeatedly, it says it must be over 8 gigabytes in size. But why isn't that at the top? Oh dear. Right, you can almost put in that comment there. Ha ha ha! If you're running 4 gig flash drive, we got you, didn't we? How long did it take you to work that out? And then you can go off and buy yourself a new flash disk or flash drive. Okay, that's me making a bit of fun of what's going on in here, and hopefully you can now avoid all these problems. So let's go to the virtual remote media. So you take the ISO image here on your workstation. This could be, you know, I'm working from home most of the time, so I could be at home and I've got a 4.5 gigabyte ISO image, and it's going to, and when it says remote, the media is on my workstation here at home, and you're going to tell it where the device is, and it will, where the ISO image is, and it will upload it to the HMC and then do the install. Couple of little gotchas there. It says here you go to the server control, that's on the BMC user interface, virtual media. I pointed that out. I think it might be on the next chart. You choose the file and click open, and then you have to wait a bit because 4.7 gigabytes of information doesn't instantaneously go to the computer. It takes a while. For example, it can take several hours to actually complete that. And I've never waited that long to find out if it actually says okay and you can carry on, because on the BMC graphical user interface you can move on before it's actually finished. I think it will wait until it's finished to actually start the upgrade or the installation. Because I was doing the maths in here, I've got a 200 gigabit download to my home here. But of course upload is usually 10% of that speed, so it's 20 megabits per second upload, which is roughly speaking 2 megabytes upload. And with that much data, that's 40 minutes at line speed. If it's half of that, it's going to be, you know, an hour and a half. If you've only got, you know, 50 megabit download, then you can just times the time it's going to take to be several hours to get that file up to your HMC. So this is useful for remote support, and it'll work, but you do have to be patient and maybe wait a couple of hours if you're not on a super fast strength network. If you're in the operator's computer room next to the computer there, and you got 10 gig network to your HMC, then yes, it will be a couple of seconds, a couple of minutes anyway, to actually get that done. I was monitoring on my workstation the network, and I waited until the network suddenly went quiet. I thought, okay, now it's up there, now I can continue. And so you power on the system at point 9 in here, which is server control, server power operations. They don't actually tell you how to do that. When you see the petite boot in there, you have to be sitting on the server control serial over LAN console. That's the dumb text screen console, and then you'll see those petite boots that I showed you on the screen dump earlier on, and then you'll get the options. And I think that's on the next screen in here. Oh, this is the server control, virtual media. Choose a file. You click on that. You find it in your file system and your operating system, and click on it, and it says start, and then it actually starts that transfer off. You can go somewhere else and yeah, expecting some sort of great big magic to actually done that in a couple of seconds, and try saying, well, where is my petite boot? Or you could just start the power up, and then it won't actually find the image when it after it's done that. Right, now the third method, yeah, you just can't believe it at this point. Okay, you can use a external USB DVD drive. Okay, I've got one of those, used it for many years. The problem is that the ISO image is just over 4.7 gigabytes, which is the standard size for a DVD. So if you try burning it to the bigger image to a regular DVD drive, it says, I can't do that, it won't fit. And then here's the documentation, and I've actually highlighted it. You've probably already noticed something over here. There's a DL in here, and you're thinking, what does that mean? And what? Yeah, the DL means dual layer. So this is a more expensive media and a more expensive DVD burner. Now, I didn't know if my DVD burner supports dual layer or not. And I looked at my DVD drive and it doesn't say DL anywhere on it. I looked up on the web. How do you determine it? Just look for a DL somewhere on the packaging. But it was actually written on the package of the box that I still keep my DVD drive in. There's a mention on the side and all those lots and lots of descriptions about the various media that this drive will support. There's a DL. So I just got lucky. You may not be so lucky. And then you say, but you have to use dual layer media. And I looked around our computer room, none at all. I looked around at home, none of those at all. But then I had to order them, and they took 2 days to get delivered. Now I'm ready to actually burn the DVD. So that's sad tale. Now you're not going to suffer. You can get ahead of the game, or maybe you know that what DL means halfway down a manual page on installing it, and then you can burn the DVD and connect to your external USB. I use the same one on my workstation as I do, connecting it to the actual HMC, and then it boots off that as normal. Yeah, here's the thing I was hinting at. This is the serial over LAN where the Petit boot will come out. And so you can see here, this is the disk SDA. It's a standard Linux sort of thing. That's A is the first disk. And then it's found another device in an SDB, and it says it's a USB device. So this would be the way it would look if you're using a flash drive or a DVD drive. And I think it actually looks the same if you're using a remote media as well. It's just the way it's presented. I have found it on occasions that it's the search order of the buses that the one that's the install actually appears at the top. And I've also seen if you've just plugged it in and powered up, that it'll show you the disk option. And then if you just wait 10 seconds, it will redo this and show you the USB drive. It's taken a while to detect it. Or you can go down to the rescan devices, and then it will deliberately go off if you've just pushed it in the front, the USB key or the DVD drive cable. Just push it in, do a rescan, and it will go and find that device and let you know. The nice thing is, if it says install hardware management console, then it's found something on the device that it thinks I could give that a go at trying to install it. Okay, I hope this is helping. Then off you go on your serial over LAN or your physical console, and it's all the regular things that we've seen for years. Do you really want to overwrite, install or upgrade? Which is it you want to do? Then it says, do you want me to actually do it? So then it gives you a status bar as it goes. Then it gives you the option of restoring critical console data if you save that or not. Okay, then it gives you the standard, do you want to fiddle about with your display? Probably not. Do you want to fiddle about with your keyboard? Probably do, unless you're in America. And then it's going to say, then after it reboots and comes up to a more graphical mode rather than the simplistic graphics up above, then it says, do you want to run the guided setup? And some people will love that because it takes you to all the things you need to add. That includes who owns it, who to call when it breaks down, and your connection up to IBM for support. It'll go through all of those. So some people don't like to do that, hand crank that themselves by taking options off the main menu. Oh, here's a good point. Yeah, once you want to go to the graphics, you have to go to the KVM in here. So once you pass the Petit boot, serial over LAN is where Petit boot comes out, then you can switch to the KVM and you get full graphics. This is exactly what you'd see on the physical screen. So you can see all the pretty pictures and the colors remotely, if that's what you want to do. And that's what I do. Then, of course, it will start discovering the power servers connected on the private network, and it's bringing up some. If it doesn't find them or you don't want to wait, sometimes it can take quite a while. You can click on here, the connect systems, and then it gives you a panel about what IP addresses you want it to go and search, and it can go find your machines. Now, I'm never quite sure about this. There's two passwords, isn't there? There's a general password and an admin password that you set, particularly if it's a brand new machine. And if this HMC hasn't brought over critical data, it doesn't know what those are, if they're not the standard defaults. But I've seen sometimes where I've gone to one machine and put in those two passwords, because I know what they were set to, 2 years ago. And I think the HMC actually tries those two passwords on other machines, because you'll find some of them suddenly going green. I think it's just they're trying to save you some manpower going typing in the those two passwords for 60 machines. You'll actually try and just give it a go. If it works, well, it's okay, then it's right. If it doesn't work, then it says, okay, I'll wait for the user to give me the real ones. Of course, you probably want to, in our case, we're on 950, we want to get 951. And so this is there's Gareth here, and remotely connecting to his favorite machine, where the installation image for the upgrade is actually taking place. I'm skipping through these because this is all sort of standard updating information. Yes, that's the update we actually want. You found, it looks through the directory to see what any packages it thinks are useful, and you choose which one if there's more than one, and off it goes. And I think he had to do with some credentials had to be reset as well. Now, when you go to 951 level, whoa, look at this. We have this new minimalist carbon style, which to me means black and white. There we go. Apparently, this is all the rage in stylistic terms, and IBM's moving. You'll find this in other places as well. And the is it PowerVS looks like this now, and other software is moving over to this new style. We'll get there in a couple of years. So these are all our regular Power 9, Power 8 machines in here. Okay. Then we looked at all partitions, and that's changed a little bit. We've got these little green logos for AX, and if there's no RMC connection, then it can't work out whether the HMC is not talking to the operating system. It's not sure what it is. So you can see both logos in here. If you add the RMC software, you can see it's actually running Ubuntu in here because it's an old version. But if it's Linux and you've added the HMC RMC software, you can actually work out that it's a Linux in here. And I shouldn't say these things, but these are the old logos. We've just updated the logos, but nobody told the HMC guys. So somebody's going to have to, in a future version, put the new logos in. But there we are. That's life at the bleeding edge. Okay. This is the virtual I/O servers. Apparently, virtual I/O servers are purple. Never knew that. There we are. Or it's the that's the favorite color of the designer's wife or something. Okay, other things in here, we have these console management in here and console settings, and there's other things in this piece. But they come up with these nice little squares with descriptions. This used to be a fairly scratchy bullet point list of things. So they've changed the look of these. Yeah, if you like, it just looks a bit more modern, I guess, rather than something out of the dark ages. So we're done there. We've just gone over the hour. We started a few minutes late. That's what I'll say. And we're done. So what are we going to say? Excellent design of our HMC. We gave it the good 100% thumbs up. We really like this computer. It's faster with the Power 9, more CPU cores, big jump in memory. I think it's helping, particularly if you've got high numbers of online users at the same time. You've got 30 people logged in, then the memory is really going to help there. If you're making lots of rapid LPAR changes, don't forget the HMC is driven via APIs from PowerVS and CMC and other software, and so it can get high concurrent usage, more than the 3 people that are allowed to log in manually. And I think things like capturing the performance stats, if you've got a lot of machines connected to one HMC, that takes quite a lot of horsepower. Every 30 seconds it's going out and getting a whole load of information, putting that into a Postgres database, and then software like my NExtract Plus will drag all that data out and put it into graphs for you. But again, that takes quite a lot of CPU time. So all those things are going to help with the extra memory in the machine, and we're good to go for a couple of years now, whatever extra functions are put into the HMC next time around. Very hard to benchmark a HMC. It's largely a graphical user interface or an API. So I suppose we could time the APIs if you had a lot of time as a programmer. But it does seem to click a bit faster. And always with a HMC, when you first log in, it's pretty slow and disappointing, to be honest. But then it starts caching all those pictures and graphics on the screen. And then the second time you go to a particular panel, it clicks a lot faster in updating your screen. And it does seem to be quite a bit faster, particularly faster than the x86-based HMCs. Easier to leave with the OpenBC features and remote access. We quite like those, particularly the graphical console. That will help a lot. It even looks good in the rack, being practically just black and black with a little button on the side that will light up green as it powers up. Okay, so please order lots and lots of CR2s for your Power 8s and 9s, and for your Power 10s that you'll be ordering shortly, and they'll be running for many years to come. Okay, I'm going to stop there.
Thank you, Nigel. Lots of detail covered there with lots of photographs and hints and tips. So thank you very much. There are a few questions. So let's see. I think Gareth has been superhero answering a lot of those.
That's typical,
And other people have also chipped in. So thanks for that. Let me see. There was a question about why we're still using SAS disks, not SSD disks. Do you have any comments on that?
No.
Okay.
I was thinking the same thing. I guess they don't want to change too much at any one time, or it's a cost thing. SSDs cost quite a lot more, and they're a lot faster, but I don't think the HMC is slowed down by its disks very much, so it doesn't make much difference.
And there were questions about migration path from x86 HMC, i.e. CR9 to the CR2, or even the virtual HMC. And Gareth posted some information about doing save upgrade data.
Good, Gareth knows more than me on that, so that's good.
Yeah. And process, yep. So we had questions about the Aix Logos, but that's an internal link that somebody's posted on where you can get those.
Yeah, the last one in, Power 9, all in uppercase, and Power 10 with lowercase hour. Yes, apparently this is the new breakthrough news in the past 2 weeks. That's the way we're going to spell Power 10. There was be careful. This is all internal IBM, right? There was a pool of school of thought that there should be a space between the Power and the 10, and all the techies said no. Because if you type in Power space 10, you get, I think it's 4 billion hits, and you'll have power screwdrivers and power supplies and power mains cables and power electricity, and it's got nothing to do with the power. So
no, that becomes
no space there. At least you've got a better chance of getting to the right information with a no space.
Yes,
So
yes,
they
I agree.
compromise there between the management and the techies, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. That would have made life very difficult for everyone.
So I encourage you not to put spaces in it, because it lowers your street cred considerably if you do that.
I like the suggestions of PowerX, but alas, that's not what will be used.
Well, a lot of the technical people wanted Power A, counting in hexadecimal, of course. But that's another question.
Yes. So there's a question about support for future Power 10 machines coming out. Will a CR2 be required, or just version 10 of the HMC code on CR1? Will that be okay?
Yeah, that's a good question. The last one just came in. Yeah, we can work a CR2 with a CR1, no problem at all. Same as going back, you could have the x86, CR8 and a CR9. They're running the same level of software. They'll never notice. So that's fine. Yeah, with Power 10, it won't work with the x86 based HMCs, but CO1s or CO2s are fine. You don't need to know this, but we're doing an early ship program at the moment for some of the Power 10 machines, and that is only using the CR2 because that's a short-term thing until the actual release of the GA software later on this year. So CR1s and CR2s will be fine for Power 10.
Great. Just trying to see if there's any other questions that haven't been answered. I can't see any. Okay, so there is one right at the bottom. I realize x86 HMCs are done, but will virtual x86 based HMCs still be an option, or everything on HMC, is it moving to Power, including the virtual HMC?
Yeah,
So,
well, Gareth, speak me to that. Yes, the
yes.
virtual x86 HMC is going to be carried on for those people that like that mode of operation, where they're typically running the HMC software on some big Intel-based machines under KVM or something. And yes, that will still carry on.
Okay.
Personally, I like a CR2. That'll get my vote, but if you really got to, then yes, that will still work. And it's carrying on.
Yeah. Great, thank you. I don't see any more questions at the moment. Just a quick word on next sessions coming up. I haven't got any proper confirmed sessions on the PowerVug info page at the moment. I am in the process of setting some up, so watch this space, and I will inform you via the usual method. I'll put it on the PowerVug info page and also send emails to anyone who's subscribed. So if you haven't subscribed to the PowerVug series, just send me an email, jyoti_dodia@uk.ibm.com. and I'll keep you informed of upcoming sessions and send the replay email for today's session as well. So
we've got some very exciting things coming up later in the year. We've already sort of hinted what that is about, but
yes,
we're itching
indeed.
to tell everybody, but we're not allowed to.
Yes, so I do have plans for all of that. So
Yeah,
watch
right.
this space, and you wouldn't want to miss those. So hope you'll join us next time, whenever that session is. I will keep you informed. Thank you very much for joining. I'm just going to stop the recording and we'll stay on for a couple more minutes after that.
Okay.